Good night to all, and today, I want to introduce you to the distribution of Fedora 20 with a graphical shell list. Let me remind you that it is merging with the Riser suite, and there will be a graphical shell soon. So in fact, this is probably the latest version of LXDE, which many have already come to love for its lightness, for flexibility. So, let's get started. Fedora is such a friendly distribution, as they write on Lukomori. It is written in parentheses if it does not fall. Fedora is a Red Hat Linux test site. That is, you using Fedora Linux help the Red Hat company to make money. Here, in fact, Fedora is beta, alpha, Red Hat. Also, it can be noted that in some countries, it is forbidden to use Fedora and Red Hat. These are, for example, Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Sudan, Syria. Well, what can I say? For Linux in general, for PDF of course, it is unpleasant. I live in the Republic of Belarus. It turns out that I probably can't use it either. Well, against the background of the fact that there is a Debian, there are domestic distributions from Linux Rosa. There is finally a riot. I don't really care about worrying about the fact that I won't be able to use Fedora and fix the buggy Red Hat somehow. But still, let's go over distributal. In front of you is a classic old, outwardly quite nothing, despite the fact that such a traditionally scary font, such a popularly called sh, is as usual. Here, of course, the version will be the latest version, the standard set of software there, you can say not quite, but more than other distributions. Of course, less than in Lubuntu. Well, about more than in the Debian Fighter or similar. Here, our graphics are half empty. Whatever you are interested in, what is used by default in the Fedora browser, is very good and fast. Consumes quite a few resources. This was done, I think, correctly, because damn, that is, the C distribution is put by few people on a powerful computer. Everyone is trying to put a CD or a GNOME, and basically CD distributions are put on single-core machines, very old, even to the point that it will work on some 600 kilorin, 128 RAM, 32 video cards, and all this will somehow spin. Of course, he is better at boxing, but he is pure boxing, although we will not talk about this yet. Nevertheless, on some old Synchron with a gig of RAM, and some old GeForce 5 200 Ultra, will rustle, work fine. You can work without any problems. Here, well, what can I say? Not bad. The distribution is quite friendly. Imagine such a situation. This is the first time you have uploaded to Life City. Here is such an environment in front of you. It's very simple. Tray, such an analog of the classic mini launch. Here we have a terminal, although it will be difficult to understand it initially. Windows to the user. And here is the file manager. Here we have virtual desktops, although Windows users will not immediately understand them. It wasn't an advertisement from the Mod Dispatch group. And here, I'm sorry, it was me who accidentally used the scroll in a certain place. So, we have the file manager as always. Why I so often do reviews specifically on SIL's distributions, because it seems to me that with this shell, it is possible to survive as much as possible for the distribution, for work. Because despite all these beauties, I would still like to work on a computer. Although I myself used on this computer, but if I were doing some basic work, I would use it. So, well, here we are in such an environment. We open an analog of the start menu. Here we have all the programs, the browser, the mail agent here, the messenger, the client, the gnomes, the gnomes. The office is quite light, and it's quite enough for people who don't suffer much from such office tasks there. Programs for burning disks, and even, as I understand it, convert City to popular formats in MP3 from G-Flag. Baker dwarfs. Why the hell are Baker gnomes here, when the program has been outdated for a very long time, and is not updated? That's right, 2008 year. Why did we put him here? Why? It's better to have a standard one. Standard software for recording the Sun disk. Although, in principle, it can be said that few people suffer from disk recording now. So, the music player is a standard CD. Even with some track we will launch it. Some kind of interesting synthpop. Now we will know what the developers are listening to. So well, his pulse is at the center there. Microphone setup, sounds of all these important things. Yes, we have a gigolo here. I don't even want to know what it is. The installer on the hard disk, the terminal is here again. So the record of the release will be transferred to your website. Then, here we have a task manager. Shows the consumption in the RAM processor. Eats little. Here we have all sorts of settings. Here we have a firewall, printer setup, and most importantly, a batch manager. They hid it so strangely, It would have been better if they had brought it out here. Why did they hide this? Here. And quickly the package manager starts looking for an update. But they also need you to start catching buggies faster and send them reports. Because Red Hat won't make money. And Red Hat supplies its distribution kit for the US government agencies, all kinds of State Department, CIA officers. Any kind of shit of good and light, that's the kind that does good in Ukraine and in many other countries. So fix it. Fix the buggy for Red Hat. This is a hint to you that if you want to get a similar distribution based on all these packages, use CentOS or some Oracle Linux. Although Oracle is probably no less evil than Red Hat. May Linus forgive me, who loves, adores this distribution, but these are all sorts of excesses. With the prohibition of using the distribution in some countries, despite the fact that it is free, it's certainly not funny. So, we will show all packages. In principle, with the file manager, well, it's not so difficult, everything is clear, it's not difficult to figure it out. I will not show you the installer. It seems to me that he has changed little with the version, probably the 18th. To be honest, the installer is not a very pleasant impression at all. I don't really like it. From the pros, Fedora, I can say, despite the fact that bug fixes are mainly for the benefit of Red Hat, a lot, of course, has gone for other distributions. Even our domestic distributions, the same Rosa, use many of the developments from Fedora. I don't know about Alt Linux, maybe too. Here, this I think is the end of this review. What else can I show you here? The standard Ds has a slightly modified design theme, a slightly non-standard set of programs. As a package manager, this is where Yum is located. The fact that you want to learn something even more interesting about the distribution itself, read Lukomori. We have launched an installer or wiki. Here, I will say that there is also a project of Fedora's Ration, which differs from Fedora herself by a small correction of some bugs, the presence of some codecs. Here, to say that this is a purely national project, and it's nothing, it's not true, because after all, it's just Fedora as an assembly. The same as saying that Runtu, for example, yes, it is a purely Russian Linux distribution, although in fact, it is just an assembly. Just an assembly in which there are no global changes, just a Russifier, and some packages originally added, prefixes for minor bugs. Here, to use, not to use, but your personal business. If you somehow don't care about ideology, and many people don't care about it, and you want to use some very fresh packages, please, because Fedora Linux uses all the latest packages. Here, on this, I think, the review can be